We're back after a long day of Sunday football, week 1. I didn't have big expectations, or high expectations, as I should say, for my team. We showed out. We got the dub, 16-10. The defense looked really good. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but a lot of football. I put down a lot of $1 many leg parlays. That was fun. Spent $7.75 and cut it off. You got to know, you got to have a limit, have a very tiny limit. And that was fun. Andre was here, watched football, had the shop open, had a few sales in the morning. I was curious to see what the foot traffic would be like on a football Sunday. And I think week 1's going to be the outlier because I think I'll have more people in here during the day as the season goes along. But week 1, everybody was like, oh man, where am I going to watch the games? And probably at a sports bar or, Buffalo Wild Wings or something like that. Or at home, I'll set up. I mean, we were set up in here. I hung a whole nother TV just to have Red Zone on. So a bit of an outlier day, but still did some good sales. So that's encouraging. Online and eBay continues to trend up, which I love. So, business as usual, but football is here. I'm also going to talk a little bit about collectors who call me and or come in and just think that their cards raw are worth the moon, are worth so much money. And even if I calmly explain, there's a lot of factors. Or, hey, the card you have at one point in time was worth a lot, but now there's just so many have been printed or so many have been graded. There's a lot of factors. I think anybody who's in the card world knows that just because I have a Victor Wembanyama doesn't mean I have $1 million. Even the base ones that I pulled out of the Mosaic, those are like $10 cards. They're cool. It was super fun to pull them, but, got to be realistic about what you have. Even if you have a key rookie card of somebody, it may not be worth a bunch of money. Now, Michael Jordan rookie cards, that's different. And we've seen that recently in the Star 84 and 85. Those cards are going for crazy money. That 84 went for, I think, over $1 million. And then that 85 one went for $250,000. So there's cards like that out there. Doesn't mean you have that card. And anyway, we'll get to that at the end. But starting off, I think an important story for business owners, especially new ones, or maybe ones who have been at it for a while. You've seen some success, year after year, which if you're still in business, that means you're successful, in some regard, right? I'm not saying you're crushing it on the profit, but you're making enough to be a part of your community and, sell things to people and hopefully take home some money for yourself, right? Make a living. Before I was born, my dad and my uncle opened Shipwreck and Cargo and Decorum. So I think at some point it was two things, and I think at first it was just Shipwreck, but they had two similar but slightly different ideas. At some point down the line, my dad decided, hey, I see the Old Port as being a future tourist destination. I mean, he had the vision. He was ahead of his time in that way. And I'll give him a lot of credit where credit's due. And he said, maybe not everybody who's going to come in here is going to buy brass fittings and what they had at the time, more marine salvage. Very different looking Old Port back in the late 70s, early 80s, even early 90s. And made the switch at some point to doing tchotchkes, shot glasses, mugs, t-shirts, sweatshirts, Portland, Maine related. Just kind of saw where the traffic was going, saw where trends would go. And hey, when you're on the waterfront, that was a pretty good call. I mean, it definitely panned out, right? Fast forward now, and we've got 2 shops in the Old Port. We got 1 up in Bar Harbor, and it's really become quite a successful business with the gift shop mentality in mind. I always joke that it's like a gift shop empire. If we were ever going to do a reality show, I think that's what I would call it, at least working title. And, my brother's taken the torch. My dad passed the torch to him, and so he's running with it. And I thought, how could other business owners apply that to what they're doing? Like, I'm in here constantly thinking, do I have the right mix of stuff? I could get new stuff. And now that I've gotten in with Tops, it's, all right, let's add the new hats, right? Let's add the lids collection, the new era stuff. Let's add throwbacks with Mitchell and Ness. Let's add jerseys through Fanatics. Maybe that means you shrink the amount of vintage, but the amount of vintage cards that you have is like really great. Or you have the boxes elsewhere and they're just not out on the floor. So you can keep the mix of stuff. You just change what's available for the customer to reach out and touch. But you also educate them on, hey, we have a new look, but we have those items here. And I think the lesson is, don't be afraid to change. Just because you've done it one way doesn't mean that's not a good reason to continue to do something. It's quite arbitrary. Like, oh, we've always done it this way. That's a bad reason to keep doing something. You keep doing something because it's effective, because it works. And then you tweak it and you nuance it and you change and you kind of, again, it's like a basketball shot. Like if you're practicing the wrong way 10,000 times, 10,000 hours, you're still going to be bad at basketball. At some point you have to adjust the angle, how you're catching the ball. Like there's so many things to it. And in a business, you have to constantly adjust the mix of inventory. Maybe I'm too clothing heavy. Maybe I got too card heavy. Maybe I got too memorabilia and signed items heavy. You don't need to have a perfect mix. It'll never be perfect, but it's good to pay attention to what you're selling. What are people buying from you? That's why I look at the reports every day and try to keep things organized on the back end and look at eBay and see what items are selling for how much. It can tell you a lot. But if things are going good, well, wouldn't you like them to go great? And sometimes it's hard for us to see that because we get complacent with it, how good it's going, and forget that that's just one step. And the work that it took us to get here is not going to be the same that's going to get us to the next step. You're going to have to start back at zero and do what you did before, and then do even more work to get to the next level. That's just what it takes. And for my dad, it was change almost every inventory item in the shop. And I think if you went in there today, there'd still be some brass hooks and those signs like poop deck and like head and sailor, first mate, captain, the little $5 brass signs. Those are still wedged in there somewhere, but for the most part, it's it's newer books, toys for kids, T-shirts, ornaments. It's got a very different look, but the same vibe, same building. It just took kind of like my brother and the staff to look at that stuff and figure out that, all right, I see where he was going with it. Let's keep running in this direction and let's keep changing. So how that applies to the shop is maybe that means less pennants, for example. Maybe it means less junk wax, but maybe it means more, right? Like you don't ever get stuck to one idea just because it happens. Like you have to be unemotional about the decision. Go to your numbers, and your numbers are going to tell you the story. And then on top of that, add in what the customer is saying, because that is going to push you over the edge one way or the other. If you have a customer constantly, like I've had customers coming in for soccer, but not enough to where I'm going to go and get a whole display case of soccer. So I say, okay, I'll buy a couple things. And I sold a couple soccer packs and boxes yesterday. I said, okay, good. Like there was this one kid and dad, and he really likes soccer. So I said, all right, like maybe next time I'll get like 4 boxes of things, and then maybe like 8, double it. So it's in those little, as you're growing, like, don't go and bet the farm on one thing, because that's not going to be a sustainable way to do business. That's almost like gambling. If you're just saying, I'm just going to buy a bunch of these hobbies and I'm going to pray that people buy them without doing the research on what's the most popular, what are people asking for the most. Like if you spend an hour researching those questions, you're going to figure out the right things to buy. So yeah, don't be romantic about your inventory mix. Just keep altering, changing, buying, and, do what you got to do to make money. I know that's hard because you'll say, well, Dave, like, you get excited about being in the shop. I do, but I'm very unemotional about what I buy and why I buy it. I buy it because I know I'm going to make a 2 to 3x profit. Really, you need to make a 3x profit if you have a big building. Otherwise, it's not worth your time. It's like, well, I could just be on the couch and do eBay and go to shows and save myself all the overhead expenses. And you're right. So now that I'm in here, I'm buying at a lower price. So lower comps, 25, 30%. I'm not even really buying right now. But maybe, in a couple weeks, hey, you never know. And I'm also buying the new stuff at a lower price through a direct account. Because bills, payroll, lights, internet, all that stuff. Cable TV to watch football. So don't be romantic about your inventory. Just, I brought this up because my brother and I were talking last night, and he was like, I got this idea, like, what if you grabbed, like youth sports items, like these really specific things and this and that, and like soccer items, or he's like, not played against sports quite, but, what if it was just you specialized in like the youth jerseys, you were the spot. And I said, oh, okay, that's interesting. Because he's like, who else around you does that? I said, yeah, it's like Dick's Sporting Goods, and that's really it. So you think, all right, that's kind of up my alley. It's not quite collectibles, but he's like, cleats was an example, and you can poke holes in that idea all day because like you have to have all the sizes, you have to pre-order a bunch of stuff. But what if you were the place to have custom soccer balls or like custom footballs, or you had youth Under Armour, right? Like, he was just throwing out all these ideas, and you're open to them, but that doesn't mean you're going to definitely do them. But it's good to use that mental exercise to think, hey, I don't need to be attached to my ideas being right. I just need the right idea. So it doesn't have to come from you, just as long as you can identify the right idea in general. Again, if all the good ideas had to come from you, that would get exhausting. So don't be afraid to change. That's kind of my first little thing for today. Patriots, let's talk about them. 16-10. They're now 1-0. Amazing. That Jacksonville game came down to a last second field goal for Miami to win. I had Jacksonville in one of my parlays. I think every one of my bets lost yesterday, but again, I only spent $7.75. So fine. I'm fine with that. Mitigated. I'll wait a week. I'll do it again, for the cost of back in the day. Well, I guess now, like a really expensive coffee. How about that? Or like 2 cheap coffees. Made a few I think like 8 bets. So they were like $1 a piece. The Pats defense looked good coming out the gate. Gerard, Coach Mayo getting his first win. That was awesome. Jacoby Brissett took a lot of hits. Did enough in the air. Like, didn't have a lot of long passes. Like, the longest pass, I think, was the Tyquan Thornton. Ramondre Stevenson looked good running the ball. And it's tough for Cincinnati to lose at home to a team that everybody's predicting to win like 2 games total. So we're already halfway to the total. We're playing with house money this year. As a Pats fan, you're just happy your team's competitive, and Drake May isn't getting crushed out there, and he's having a chance to grow and watch and learn and develop. So Pats, stoked on the Pats. A lot of football. Red Zone, like I said, we're just watching a ton of stuff. It was a great Sunday. And then a final segment here, which is working title, The Daily Dig. It's more kind of like a what grinds my gears, as Peter Griffin would say. It's collectors or just folks who call and or come in the shop, and they don't want to believe you when you tell them the real value of their items. Now, we don't do official appraisals, but constantly we're asked, hey, I have so-and-so's rookie card. He was a great player. And I'm like, yeah, but there's very few rookie cards out there in the grand scheme of all the players that have played sports that are worth a lot of money and can be sold for a lot of money. So I think it was a couple football players, and I said, based on these eBay prices and what I think I could sell them for raw, it looks like these cards are about $40 if they're in really nice condition. So in my position, I'd have to buy them for $10 for me to make a profit. And, people weren't too happy about it. And I just said, maybe I'm not your buyer. That's always a line you can use if you're a shop owner. I get it. You can probably make more money on eBay. You can probably get, not probably, but like you have a better chance than selling it to me. Because remember, you sell the card to me, I need some margin there. And I need to get 2 to 3x on a card for it to make sense for me to buy it. Otherwise, and I told this to a kid yesterday, I said, I'm just going to buy it to keep it, to bring it home. So collector price, different from shop price. Shop price, I can buy it because I got to sell it to a collector. When I was in the wholesaling real estate world doing content, what was constantly brought up is like, leave meat on the bone. Like if you're the wholesaler and you're going to sell it to somebody who is going to, renovate the house and sell it retail, you have to leave profit in there. You can't sell the house in whatever condition you found it in for asking retail price. Like that doesn't make sense. But you can say, hey, give me 10 grand and it's yours, because you're just moving papers, right? And then that person's going to renovate the house, do the work, and sell it. So in this case, the customer's kind of like the wholesaler. They're like, hey, I got this card. I'll sell it to you for $10. Or even better yet, sell me a box of them. And then I can buy them from you at $10 a piece. But I can do the work, list them, market them, put them in a sleeve, put them in a top loader, and then sell them at retail. That's how that works. So you gotta bite your tongue, and you have to recognize that for most people, this is the first time they're going to go to try to sell these cards, and they've never done it before. And so you want to be gentle, and you don't know like what their mood is, even though you can read body language, this and that. And that's kind of the best way to treat it, is like, hey, I'm just maybe not your buyer, but if you want cash today, this is the price I can give you. Very similar to a pawn shop in that regard. If you have a card that's what I call more liquid, that I could like flip tomorrow, then I can probably pay more money because I know I can buy it and sell it very quickly. But if it's a card that is going to take me some weeks, I can't put all that upfront money into it and then sit on the card and sit on that investment. That money's not making me any money. This will be a constant theme all the time, daily, weekly, monthly, you get it. But football's back. Hey, Monday Night Football is also back. So another game. It's never going to end. It's never going to stop. Is it too early to say I'm looking forward to basketball and the Celtics trying to run it back? Looking forward to it. That's it for me. I got some work stuff to do. Got to wake up, finish this coffee. I don't know if I have a question for everybody today, but yeah, I guess I got one. What is the one card that you had growing up or still have as an adult that you were so excited and you thought it was worth a bunch of money, and then you had the heartbreaking experience to realize that it was not indeed worth that money? What was that card? The card you thought was worth $1 million and is really worth like $1. I'd love to know. Leave me a comment. If you're in Southern Maine, come see us, 370 US Route 1 in Scarborough. Double Play Collectibles. I'm Dave, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.